Fantastic. So for this webinar, we have individuals dialing in from France and Nice. We have Dubai, Lebanon, and I can see that we have individuals from Saudi Arabia as well. We have Nigeria. Fantastic. All right. So I hope all of you have found the chat button. If not, please feel free to press the chat button and tell me where you are from. So for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Sana Sam, and I am the founder of MENA Speakers. MENA Speakers is the leading speaking agency in the region. We represent top talents, intellectuals, experts in their field, and they go around the world and share their knowledge to different organizations and conferences. And today we are so lucky to be on a webinar to share some insights on the current situation. And we're so happy to be able to be having an exchange of thoughts. So some basic rules here. Please keep your computer, phone, device on mute. Keep your camera as well off. And then if you have any questions, type them in the chat. There's a chat function, and we will be addressing all of the questions going on there. So as we see more people dropping in, just to take up one more minute of your time, for all of those of you who are experts in your field, who also would like to share knowledge, and in particular women, we do welcome you to join our campaign that we launched on the 8th of March called MENA Women Speakers. So we're welcoming experts and females from around the region to join us in a campaign to bring more experts and female speakers. Okay, so without further ado, today we have a fantastic expert in her field. She has spent over 15 years in her career of media. She's worked with BBC and Sky News, and we are so lucky to call her one of our speakers. So without further ado, I'll give you Jessy El Murr. The screen is yours.
Bring different voices. Oh, I think you can hear me now. Great. Thank you so much, Senna, for this wonderful introduction. Thank you, MENA Speakers. Thank you for everyone who's joining us from so many different countries. I'm truly, truly delighted that we get this chance to chat and talk and discuss crisis communication, maybe on a more positive note. And I would like to keep it this way, on a level where we can discuss what we can learn when it comes to running a crisis, and how to better communicate with consumers, communicate with the public, whether you have a small business or you work in the government or the private sectors. We all have so much to learn from what this crisis has taught us in the past few weeks. I have divided this webinar into 4 sections. The first one will be around 10 minutes or so. I will try to time myself, where I chose 5 top lessons that I think are crucial. There's so many lessons, frankly, I was trying to put them down. There's maybe like 20 lessons, but I chose the 5 main ones that we can discuss briefly with some slides and examples. The second part would be some statements of leaders around the world. We've heard statements that went the right way and statements that caused other crises. We go through just 1 or 2, for examples. And the final section of this webinar will be about next steps, what we should be thinking about in the next few weeks, whether, again, you're in different sectors, whether you own your business, you're thinking of launching a business, or you're a government employee, you're a government spokesperson, where should we go next? And I'll try to leave about 10 minutes or more, 10 or 15 for questions and answers. Try to leave them at the end so that I can look at the chat and read them. So I will be sharing with you my screen momentarily, every few slides, when I have some important facts to share with you. This crisis has affected all of us in different varying degrees. Some of us catastrophically, some of us mildly, some of us are still lagging behind other countries. So the big picture, the big image of what we can start, we can use this as a starting point, is that everybody was taken by surprise. No matter where you work, in what corporate, in what government, in what country you are in, and no matter how ready your organization thought it was, everybody was taken by surprise to a varying degree. We went from complete extremes. We went from some countries saying, oh, completely downplaying the crisis. Oh, it's nothing, it's just the flu, or we don't know what it is, or it will be fine, which is what we heard a lot from the American president. We have enough masks, we have enough tests, it's fine, it will be fine, it's under control. And then, just a few days, in a matter of days, we started seeing pictures and videos from all over the world of schools shutting down and senior citizens not having enough medical care, long rows of people trying to buy basic necessities, fighting over toilet paper in Australia, crazy images we are bombarded with on a daily basis. So today we're just gonna take a step back. We're going to think positively and take the good, the positive and the negative lessons and see how we can use them to our advantages as individuals, as citizens, as businesswomen and business owners, or as government or corporate employees. I'm going to try to, let me share my screen with you, because many of you know that I'm big on numbers, not because I want to put you down or remind you of the injuries and how many casualties this virus is causing, but because one of the golden rules in any crisis communication is knowing your facts first before addressing or doing anything about it. So let me share quickly with you what we have so far. So in order for us to discuss anything to do with this situation, we need to briefly look at where we are today, okay? So I've rounded up the numbers. I hope you can see the screen. I think you can, right? Great. I've rounded up these numbers so that you can take a look at it. Some numbers are positive, and we actually don't see them in the media, and the media is playing a big role in this. We can try and tackle this later on. The big picture we have numbers-wise is we're getting close to 200,000 number of infected people all over the world. We have around 7,900, so close to 8,000 recovery. Sorry, close to 8,000 is the number of casualties. Okay, and wait, I'm gonna switch this. I apologize. Okay, the number of people who have recovered is getting close to 8,000, but we don't hear this in the media. We hear a lot about the casualties that are getting close to 80,000. Okay, so the reason my screen sharing is going crazy because of my Mac. The reason I'm highlighting this number, which is 8,000, I want you to get this positive number, is 8,000 people have now recovered from the crisis. So why am I saying this? Because we don't hear a lot about people recovering. And this is also one of the main problems in the way we are propagating our messaging. The negative messaging usually in any crisis is the messaging that gets the attention, simply because this is how the news cycle works. People get more, they get the attention, they get better headlines, they get more readers when a dramatic number is displayed. And that dramatic number, which is 80,000 casualties, is the bigger number, which is why we don't hear about the good number, which is the number of recoveries. So I would say that one of the main lessons we learn is giving more attention to the positive things that are happening in this crisis. And one of them is this number. Now, putting the numbers aside, I am no public health official. I am no politician. I am simply going to focus on communication and what governments and businesses have done right or wrong. Before we continue, and I wanted to start on a positive note, so other than that good recovery rate, I wanted to show you this video, which has made over 5 million views in 3 days, less than 3 days. The video comes from Italy, where people were asked to record a very short message to themselves days ago. So 10 days ago, we all know most Italians were not taking this crisis as on the level of danger that or threat that it should have been, or seriousness that it should have been taken. So Italians were still going out and about, they were still congregating, celebrating. Life was somehow still very normal. Italians now have recorded these messages in a fantastic video, speaking to themselves 10 days ago. Watch this, it's about a little over 2 minutes. And then we'll talk about it. Just bear with me and let's see.
Ciao Anna.
Ciao Salvatore.
Ciao Francesca.
Ehi Virgi.
Ciao Daniele di 10 giorni fa.
Hai paura? No, sono te, tranquillo, sono te tra 10 giorni.
Ti parlo dal futuro.
Lo so che sei di fretta, ma fermati un secondo.
Volevo aggiornarti sulla situazione in Italia.
Sta per succedere un casino pazzesco.
Sono certa del fatto che tu abbia già sentito parlare di coronavirus e sono altrettanto certa del fatto che tu stia prendendo sotto gamba la cosa.
Addirittura se vedevo qualcuno con la mascherina lo prendevo in giro.
Smettila di prendere in giro tua madre quando ti dice di comprare le mascherine e comprale, scema.
Fino a 10 giorni fa facevo riunioni di lavoro, andavo a cena con gli amici, palestra, al parrucchiere, solite banalità che non hanno mai fatto del male a nessuno.
But in 10 days life will be no more like this.
L'ipotesi forse peggiore è quello che succederà.
Eh sì, perché i contagi in Italia saranno sempre di più, dimostrandoti che non era una cazzata come credevi.
10 giorni fa potevano essere 2000 contagi, adesso siamo arrivati a 18.000, abbiamo superato i 1000 decessi.
Quindi adesso ti ritrovi a fare dei turni mortali.
Adesso siamo in una situazione assurda.
Qua non possiamo uscire di casa se non per strettissime necessità.
Una bella quarantena, quella che hai visto soltanto nei film.
Una nazione intera bloccata a casa. Non te l'aspettavi, eh?
Gli ospedali stanno veramente scoppiando, i casi sono tanti anche tra i giovani.
Ci sono dei ragazzi della nostra età che sono stati intubati in terapia intensiva.
Guarda, è solo l'influenza, sì vabbè, poi grave, però poi boh. È stata presa con un po' di leggerezza.
La leggerezza va coltivata nell'anima, ma non nei gesti.
Se devi andare in giro, fallo soltanto per cose veramente indispensabili.
Perché quello che rischi non è il solito raffreddore.
Vediamo immagini dalla Francia, dagli Stati Uniti, preoccupanti, di persone che stanno prendendo sotto gamba la cosa. È un problema più serio di quello che gran parte del mondo crede.
Non è pessimismo cosmico.
Quello che sta succedendo è molto più grave di quello che ti immaginavi. Tu capirai che solo il fatto di poter respirare anche solo l'aria di casa tua, beh, insomma, è già una grandissima cosa.
So che la Cina è lontana, ma il virus è più veloce di quanto credi, quindi rivedi un attimo i tuoi programmi del sabato sera. E che ne sai che magari se non fossi stato un pochino più a casa tu adesso non dovrei starci io.
Sappi che all'inizio ti sembrerà di impazzire, ti sembrerà di non vedere la fine del tunnel.
Non sei l'unico, non sei solo.
Comincerai a vedere il bello e il brutto insieme.
Ti aspettano momenti di unione che non avresti mai immaginato, come ieri, che siamo usciti tutti sul balcone e tutto il vicinato cantava canzoni. Ognuno cantava la sua canzone, ma in qualche modo eravamo uniti.
Quindi
inizia sin da subito a fare il tuo.
Tommaso, non fa cazzate.
Non fare cazzate.
Stay at home.
Perché male non ti fa.
In questo modo non ci sei solo tu.
Stai a casa.
Potrei riposare, leggere, guardare film, serie TV, suonare la chitarra, anzi imparare a suonare la chitarra perché non sei capace.
E stai tranquilla che finirà presto.
Okay, very simple, very positive message. We Italians love to live, we love to go out, but we underestimated this crisis. Don't do the mistake that we have done. Stay at home. pretty positive video, which is why it probably, as a message, as a communication message, it has resonated with those around the world who are now maybe a week or so behind when it comes to the curve, behind the Italians. I just want to please reiterate the numbers issue, because I had a counter that was going a bit crazy. Here it is. This is the most updated. We're talking about 80,000 recovery. Okay, I want to make sure that you see this, and the death is actually 8,000. So I wanted to correct this so you see this right. I'm sure you haven't heard that 80,000 people have recovered, but you have heard that close to 200,000 are infected. I am highlighting this positive number because only those who sit and research it hear about it. So let me move on to the 5 quick lessons that I think we learned. The number 1 lesson, and we can discuss this, you may have witnessed it in your organization, is the amount of companies, organizations, government or private, who have noticed or were taken by surprise and realized that they do not have a communication crisis plan. And I've seen this firsthand. I've been in organizations where communication plans or crisis communication plans are big binders, 300, 400, 500 pages, sitting in a drawer somewhere, and literally are taken out of the drawer whenever a crisis hits, and nobody has read it before. This is one of the main takeaways from this crisis. Management or maybe officials in different sectors are realizing the importance of actually having a crisis plan and why you need it and what is a crisis plan to begin with. So I'm going to emphasize this as the first lesson, the importance of not only having a crisis plan, but updating this plan every 3 months, okay, is a good practice. You've noticed in the places where we've worked, I don't know about you, but I've taken part in so many fire drills, and not one time I have seen any exercise relating to how will my organization deal with a crisis if it were to happen. Who are the teams that will take part in running this crisis? Who will run the message? Who will craft the message? Who will say the message? Where will these messages be propagated? Social media, TV, radio. All of this is really missing, and it just remains ink on paper in so many places. So if you take away anything from this webinar, is make sure that you go back to your organization or place of work, or if you have your own business, make sure that you sit with a professional and actually try to craft communication crisis plan, or take a look at what you have already and see whether or not it applies. I'm going to go back to the presentation just so I can show you a little bit more about what is what involves communication. As soon as I can get out of this video. Yeah, bear with me. This is the price of modern or working remotely. We all learn how to navigate different windows. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna get back to the presentation. I'm gonna move on to a little bit of details of under the crisis communication plan, what is a crisis team, or who makes a crisis communication team? In most places, again, I have worked in, usually it's the PR or the communication department that runs all of this, and all other departments are not aware of it at all. That's a big mistake. Why? In a lot of cases, you've seen this actually between the White House and President Trump. The president, who's on top of the pyramid, let's say, when it comes to leadership, is making statements and contradicting statements that offices inside his White House are making. So now we have the same body, the same entity with two different statements. We've heard it when he announced that there are enough testing equipment, that everything is under control, and that he's taken the test himself, contradicts this and says otherwise, and then governors start warning their constituents that no, we don't have enough coronavirus tests available, and then panic ensued. This panic, the main reason behind it is because conflicting statements were done, and the crisis plan either was not followed, or nobody looked at it, or it was done by a previous team. There certainly were not steps that were going in specific order. The second thing to think of when it comes to a crisis communication team is who the spokesperson is in your organization. Many organizations have different spokespeople. The good practice is to have one main spokesperson and always someone as a backup plan. If something were to happen, if the spokesperson were not available, whatever it is, he's not ready, he's not trained well enough, he doesn't have information well enough, the second person, designated person, can be serve as a spokesperson. Now, the problem we fall into is that spokespeople usually end up having their own small teams, so they come up with messages without going through the plan, without going through an actual setup where there should be a congregated, like a war room. Every big organization, when facing a crisis, they do something called a war room, which is a concentrated team that usually involves obviously the top leadership and one main representative from each department, because the whole organization should at some level be aware not of the whole plan. As you go down the pyramid, top or department heads should be alerting their constituents as to the main points of this crisis communication plan. Okay, I'm going to try and get back to the presentation. Here we go. Okay. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Some things were glitching. So, what is an actual plan? We already discussed what it involves. We discussed the team, who should be the team. I'm just giving you best practices, yeah? The messages that you will give out in time of a crisis should talk about the purpose of your message. So more importantly than sitting down and saying, okay, now we have a crisis. Let's say you're in the telecom business, you're into the legal business, you're into fashion, you're into travel, hotel. We have a crisis. You take a look at your crisis communication plan, which should give you who the team is, their phone numbers, obviously, how you're gonna be speaking to each other or communicating this information, and all the facts that you have from official sources. So now we have this crisis. We have facts. We have the number of people affected. We have a very high infectious rate. And we as a hotel, as a telecom company, want to sit down and think about what are the messages that we want to give out to our consumers or to our constituents. The role of your message, before you craft it, you should think, what is the impact you want to give out? And many examples during the past few weeks happened where the message said something, but the impact was the complete opposite. And it's very important. Again, this is one very big golden rule. It's very important not for you just to craft a message, but to think of the impact you are making on your readers, subscribers, consumers, or constituents. Obviously, in your plan, you need to think about the channels and what are the preferred methods for you to address your audience. So some audience should be addressed via social media, other audience via TV. In remote countries, newspapers are still the top way of communicating information. So knowing who your audience is and where you are will dictate for you how to spread that message to them. And each country, each company, each city, each town, every time you go smaller, the medium of communication should be and is different. All these things are put into your crisis communication plan. So I tried to divide it for you in case you wanted to look at it. This is what your plan should have. Now, I said the first lesson to be learned is that there was no communication plan in so many organizations, and that's why I spent a lot of time talking about it. We move on to the next lesson, speed versus accuracy. Okay, in a lot of cases, we've noticed that there's always a struggle. Should we think about coming out with a message quickly, or should we wait to have more information? The golden rule in sending messages, or if you're a journalist in writing news, or if you're an organization like the World Health Organization, usually speed is the most important, because it averts people from making their own decisions or from taking information from unofficial sources. However, in times of crises, accuracy is more important than speed. Now, that does not mean that we sit for a week on crucial information we have, but it is 10 times better for you to be accurate than for you to come first or for you to be speedy, which is exactly what happened in several leaders' statements. I go back to the American president because he's broken every single crisis communication rule, and he was very keen on being the first to communicate information, and ended up with so much inaccurate information that panic was the result on the streets. Now, if we talk quickly about your messaging, okay, before you convey a message, you need to think of answers of these 5 questions. And these are called the 5 W's. We learn about these in journalism. Police departments teach these when they're investigating cases. Who, what, when, where, and why. Those are 5 questions you should, before you talk to your consumers or do a press conference or address anyone in your vicinity or in your corporation or wherever you are, you should try to have answers to these 5 questions, okay? Who, what happened, when is very important, where, and why. When I say why, what I mean by why is, why should your consumers care about this news, or why should your constituents care? If something happened in a very distant country that doesn't affect you, you obviously don't need to make a message or to address your customers, okay? I wanted to pause a little bit on the phases of crafting a message, okay? Crafting your message usually should go through these 5 phases. And this applies whether you're in government, whether you're in private sector, whether in any different crisis you are facing, health, political, environmental crises. You have 4 phases of a crisis message. The first one is what we discussed, gathering data. You sit down, you gather data. And when I say data, it's facts, official facts from official organizations, not, you know, news, by the way, is not necessarily an official organization. So the news can be very misleading, and still in many places, the news outlets are used as official sources of information, and that's a big mistake. The second phase is for you to think about your audience. Who are you speaking to? Are they local? Are they international? Are they employees, citizens, investors, expats? Knowing who your audience is dictates or will tell you how you're going to address them. Obviously, crafting your message is the whole exercise. Is it going to be, when you think about the message, what do you want to convey from it? But most importantly, how? Again, radio, social media, TV, newspaper, press conference. You have so many different ways now to communicate that message, and it's linked directly to your audience. And finally, delivering the message. Who is going to deliver it? What's the process? Their body language. How do they feel delivering? Do they have enough information to face the media with the questions they're going to get? All these come into your planning of the message. I wanted to take a look real quickly at some of the businesses I chose to give you examples of messaging that, or to say that messaging is not only what to say, it's also what to do. So okay, I need to emphasize this, so I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. It's not just what you say to your customers, it's what you do about it. So in the first phases of this crisis, we heard a lot and we got a lot of emails from every single company almost that you deal with. My kids' nursery, my telecom company, the travel agent we work with, everyone you know has sent you emails saying, we care about you as a customer. You know, leaders came out and said, we care about our constituents. This is what we are doing. We are sanitizing. You can still come to the gym. You can still come to the school. You can still do that. Those were in the early phases. The impact of that message was for them to tell you as a customer, we care. You know, like we care, we know what's happening, and trust us that we are following the situation. But then as the crisis went on, this wasn't enough anymore. Okay, you care, but what are you going to do for me as a consumer? So phase 2 went from verbal messaging and just saying that you care to actual showing that caring. Now, here are some examples, and think of examples in your countries of some companies and governments as well, who have taken steps to support consumers, to support small businesses, and communicate this message. The top telecom companies in the States, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, AT&T, for the first time came together and said, we are gonna give our customers 60 days of free service if they cannot, you know, whoever cannot pay their bill, we're gonna waive the bills for 2 months. Now that's a big step, but that shows you how big the problem is. Saudi Airlines, today or yesterday, I received an email saying they're going to waive all the flight amendments fees. So you can change your flight anywhere you were going, and they're not going to charge you any fees. Saudi Airlines a few weeks ago also was just sending messages saying, you know, we are taking precautions, we are thinking about your safety, but now they moved on to the action. Delta Airlines, Delta CEO has pledged his salary for 1 year to avoid job losses. The government of Bahrain, I think yesterday, has announced that they're going to cover 3 months of electricity bills for small businesses. Now, why all of this? Because the impact of the crisis, the impact of the misinformation, the impact of the wrong messaging that's coming out has caused people to panic. I mean, I know I was really nervous in the very first few days. We didn't have a lot of information, so everybody was going on any medium they can find to find new information. So the importance of crafting your message, crafting it early, but crafting it accurately, makes a big difference in how you run or manage your crisis. Briefly, this is when I told you about, remember I said it's not just crafting a message, but it's thinking about the purpose of your message and its impact. So it's good practice for you to have a chart sometimes when you want to craft a response to any crisis that you have. On the left side, you have emotion. On the right side, you have impact, right? Or sometimes it's listening, believing. So if you want to comfort them, you know, if you want to give a message that comfort them and give them trust and give them more information and support, all these emotions on the right side will lead to actions on the right side. All the emotions on the left will lead to action on the right. They will, if you comfort your customers, they will listen to you. If you give them trust, they will believe. If you give them information, they will not find other information from alternative sources. All of this will lead you into mastering or decreasing at least the level of panic which has spread all over the place. The importance of audience, I summarized it in this quick slide. Why is it important for you to actually sit down and have a sheet that says, okay, my audiences are this and this age, this and this nationality, these are their interests, this is how much they can spend. Everything you can gather about your audience makes a huge difference. Why? Here are photos from Florida, Beirut, South Africa, Riyadh, all within the past 3 to 4 days, okay? Now look at the wide difference. South Africa, March 17, completely empty shelves. People cannot find basic food in so many large grocery stores. Milk, bread, you know, your basics. This is March 17. On the same day in Florida, people are on the beaches. Nothing's happening. You know, yeah, there's a virus, but we're going to go to the beach. In Beirut, same thing, March 15. They're out jogging and walking about. You wouldn't think there's a crisis. And this is despite government officials' warnings for people to stay at home. In Riyadh, people were distributing hand sanitizers and masks for free. There were no panic. You don't see the pictures of empty shelves that we have seen in other countries. Now, why is this the case? I'm gonna pause just for you also to think about this. Countries have or people and customers have reacted so differently to the warnings of their leaders because as audiences, they are this different. For example, people in Lebanon have been through wars, famines, kidnappings, complete economic shutdown, complete government lockdown, and they've been protesting for the past few months, bringing down the government and waiting for new reforms in the country, that when you come and tell them, oh, hey, there's a virus, stay at home, the message just didn't resonate. This is a very unique audience. The message you need to give has to be very unique. It has to be drastic. It has to give them impact to actually sit at home and realize the threat. It failed to do so because the government in Lebanon did not accommodate the message to its own people. Now, in Riyadh, local governance actually, I heard and I saw some photos that they made homemade hand sanitizers, you know, and they were just giving it away already. And that's in Riyadh, in the city. And I haven't seen one photo in there showing empty shelves or this amount of panic that we are seeing in the States, in Britain, in Australia, and in South Africa as well. So this takes us to, so the lessons that we went through are having a crisis communication plan is very important, updating it and having an actual designated team to run this plan. Thinking about your message is very important, how to deliver it, what to say and what to do, not just to say that we care, what you're going to do as a small business or a government. Thinking about your audience, how to reach out to that audience effectively. Okay. The fourth one, which is really important before I go to the leaders, is using influencers. I've seen so many wonderful collaborations in the past few weeks between ministries, and I mentioned Kuwait because I've seen so many in them, ministries and influencers. So official government entities went to influencers who usually you would see movies about travel on their Instagram or entertainment, technology. They went to them, they chose a few and said, okay, why don't we collaborate? What ended up happening is the government used these influencers as channels to propagate messaging because they know the youth will probably follow, and they still follow these leaders in their communities. So they went to them, and we ended up having very informative videos about how to test for corona, what are the symptoms and all of that, from influencers who are not public health officials, but they are taking the messages from the officials to propagate it, and that was wonderful. The last thing I wanted to discuss and lessons we learned is the statement of a leader, how a leader should be addressing their people. I think I may have went overboard, but okay. So I'm going to give you 3 examples, or maybe 2 I have. I would try to cut it down so that I don't go over 2 minutes. Let's start with this first example. I want you to listen to the message of the British Prime Minister, and don't think about just what he said. Think about, or try to imagine, the impact he has created. Let's take a listen together.
We've done what can be done to contain this disease, and this has brought us valuable time, but it's now a global pandemic, and the number of cases will rise sharply. Indeed, the true number of cases is higher, perhaps much higher than the number of cases we have so far confirmed with tests. And I've got to be clear, we've all got to be clear, this is the worst public health crisis for a generation. Some people compare it to seasonal flu. Alas, that is not right. Owing to the lack of immunity, this disease is more dangerous, and it's going to spread further. And I must level with you, level with the British public. More families, many more families, are going to lose loved ones before their time. And the Chief Scientific Advisor will set out the best information we have on that in a moment.
Okay. Now, let's think about what he just said for a moment, and then let's think about what impact it made the next day. The British Prime Minister was leveling with his people. He said, "I'm going to be honest. This is not like the flu. This is dangerous." So the impact. This is what he said. The impact of what he said is, okay, correctly, he raised the alertness level. Wonderful. But then he went on to just bluntly say that more people are going to lose their loved ones. And this is a dramatic statement to be said by a country leader. Why? I'm not going to tell you why. I'm going to show you why. Because the next day, what do you think the top headlines in the British news were? I'm going to show you what the main headlines said the next day. This is what they wrote. Okay, sharing screen is a pain. I just realized this, but we'll solve this later. Here you go. Here are the headlines that all the British media went with the next morning. Boris Johnson, many more families are going to lose loved ones before their time. Yes, people will die, says Boris. Just keep calm and carry on. Boris Johnson lays bare coronavirus threat. Many more families are going to lose loved ones. Why is this dangerous? It's dangerous because when you as a leader just tell people that, people are going to die. Let's think about it this way and use this as a great example, by the way. Are people going to die? Yes. So is what he said accurate? Yes. Did he make any statement that wasn't factual? No. So why is what he said wrong? It's wrong because the impact of what he said, even though it's factually true, but coming from him as a leader who should be instilling more calm and rationale, the impact was panic. People got so scared, the media got so scared, they were saying this is, unprecedented, historical. People rushed in to buy and stock up. Those who started to think about their loved ones and the elderly and travel to see them. many stopped watching his press conference because right after he told them that your loved ones are going to die, nobody wanted to listen about health precautions. You shocked them so much. The impact of whatever it is you were trying to do gave you a negative effect. Now, I'll go just to the next, and hopefully we'll have time to end on a positive note, okay? Contrast what we heard from the British Prime Minister with what we heard from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed on March 16. A truly historical statement from His Highness. I hear this translated here in English. He tweeted it in English, but he said it in Arabic. You can watch the video and read the English on the left.
أريدكم تتذكرون كلمة وحكمة. الوقت هذا سيمضي، الوقت هذا سيمضي، لكن يحتاج إلى صبر شوي. الدواء والغذاء هذا خط أحمر لدولة الإمارات. عندنا القدرة على تأمين الدواء والغذاء إلى لا نهاية. الإنسان اللي شاك في نفسه وهو في أمانة في رقبتنا وياي بيفحص لازم يفحص. هذا واجبنا أن نحن نأكد سلامته وسلامة أهله في وطننا.
Right. So what happened here? Why is this a historical statement? So again, we have a leader of a country in a times of crisis. His constituents and people who live in the country, such as myself and many other, over 200 different nationalities, live here. Suddenly he comes out very calmly, tells people, this time will pass. هذا الوقت سيمضي. So it's just a phase, but it's a challenging phase. And don't you worry about having food or medicine as long as you live in the United Arab Emirates. Historical statement. I mean, it made all the social media trends. It was newsy. Why? Let's think about not what he said. The words may seem to you simple words, but let's think of the impact. He made an absolute genius, smart move where he managed to do all the following in the statement. He managed to calm people down. He managed to calm his own people, the local Emiratis. He managed to calm all the expats because he addressed locals and he addressed expats. And he addressed people in their main basic fears, which is because he saw what's happening in other countries. Don't worry about eating or getting medicine as long as you live in this country. Immediately you can feel and you can tell by the way people shared this message how much it resonated with everybody living here, with people who are not locals but consider this country as their own. This is a great example of how to carefully craft a message, and note how much he waited to make this message. He didn't come out in the early days and said this message. Probably he was gathering facts. His team was getting him enough information about how much supplies do we have, because you wouldn't want to come out and say we have enough supplies and then end up not having supplies. So all these different messages, I will not have time to take you to messages that were done by President Trump. I had another video, but I think I'd rather go to Q's and A's just so we don't overlap. You see the differences in addressing the people, even his body language. He was calm, you know, he wasn't, there was, when you hear him, even if you're not listening to the words, you don't feel panic. He calms you down, which is a wonderful impact in one very short message. Now, again, I will go just to the last quote, because I want this to be your main takeaway today. Wherever you work, whatever crises you are facing, print this and hang it in front of you. Okay, this is a great rule in facing crisis communication. You can say anything as long as you master how to say it. Okay, you can tell people that you're facing a crisis, but you don't have to go and tell them, hey, you're going to die. Your loved ones are going to die. It's so dramatic that it causes the reverse effect. Okay, with that, I'm going to try to take some of your questions. Apologies for the switching back and forth. I felt some slides were informative. I have some of the questions are really long, so try to try to give me maybe a couple of lines so I don't spend too much time looking away from you. Yes, that's correct, Ismail. The recovered is, yes, that's correct. Recovery rate is 80,000, which is the number we highlighted. Sana shows us or sends us the first question. As an SME owner, do you believe we should send out an email to our clients? I hope you send it out already, not now, because now everybody has. It depends on the industry you are in. Yeah, so small businesses communicate with their customers based on what sort of service they deliver, and that should be something you decide when you set up your business, or in the early phases. As you keep going and growing, you will learn how your customers like to be communicated with. If you own a bakery, if you own a computer shop, if you own a hair salon, for example, I know hair salons will communicate with customers via text or WhatsApp. Why? Because they would ask you, what is your preferred method of communication? So there's no one rule fits all. I will not say every SME should send an email, but I will say every SME should communicate with their customers via the preferred channel. It could be WhatsApp, SMS, social media, email, telephone call, whatever you asked your customer in the early phases of their preferred way of communicating. Liwa has a question. Any piece of advice on the messages after the crisis should be channeled? Yes, exactly. I didn't have time to go through what's next. So the last part of the webinar should have given more time for this. So thank you, Liwa, for this question. What's next now is for you to plan and see what happens when you send these messages and how you're going to react to it. Many businesses fall into the mistake of sending out a message and then that's it, they rest. You need to communicate. This is like social media. Those who don't engage on social media fail. You've seen a lot of influencers who just post something and they just don't answer any of the comments. You need to communicate with your customers and listen from them. So any message you send out must have responses. You have to figure out a way that doesn't infringe on their time or doesn't annoy them, so you can hear their feedback and plan accordingly. Your plan, crisis plan, should not be a steady line that doesn't change at all. It should be a plan that is adaptable, that adapts to your customers, listens to their concerns, and gives them back in return. It's a two-way street, just like anything else we use to communicate. It's not a one-way channel. How should, okay, MENA speakers, how should organizations communicate with employees when they need to lay them off because of the economic situation? That's a very obviously tough way tough news to break to employees. I know some of them who have already received this news. There's no easy way to say it. There's no best way to say it. However, there are steps that can and should be taken by any organization to help the employee in the next few months. If obviously layoffs hopefully is the last resort, but if layoffs is the only way, communicating this news should come with a lot of support. For example, paying sick leaves, vacations, giving support to children's schooling, anything you can do to support before you give this news of layoffs, maybe would help a little bit in just giving them some time to recuperate from what's happening, rather than just saying, oh, this is tough times and we need to lay off some jobs. Give some support at the same time as giving the news. Okay, we have a question. Lena, thank you. Very informative. Thank you, Lena. How do we convince businesses that it is imperative to have crisis management and communication plans and training? Absolutely. It's difficult. I've learned that, unfortunately, most of the time, most businesses start crisis communication planning or training after the crisis, not before. And that's just, I don't know why. Maybe some organizations just have a different culture. I know here in the Middle East, we're not big on the idea of planning. Planning is fairly recent to many of our cultures, okay? We're used to wing it. And in some small businesses, I still find that. And surprisingly so in large organizations around the world, still crisis communication is not given importance. Hopefully, Lena, what's happened now with coronavirus and the signals and the contradicting messages that were going back and forth between countries, hopefully now it'll be easier for you to convince organizations of the necessity to do a crisis communication. I mean, look at Britain today. Still, I was checking yesterday, Britain still has not shut down schools. They will not shut down. They said it's not necessary. And 2 weeks ago, or 1 week ago, they were discussing about, or they were announcing applying this theory that says, or discusses the herd immunity. I don't know if you've heard about it. Basically a theory that says that letting people get infected might help raise the immunity of a certain percentage of a population. Just yesterday, British scientists came out and said, you know what, this theory is not scientific and we're not going to apply it anymore. And now we're going to follow the rest of the world and ask you to sit at home. What a communication disaster. What a disaster that has happened. And history will mark this, that a country, you know, a main large country, a main power in the world has decided to just wing it and go with a theory that nobody else in the world is applying, that says, let our people get infected and that's how we may help them build immunity to this. So that's a big example of why there should be a crisis communication plan. Yes, I'm sorry. This is a great topic and I have so many questions, but I think I'm running overboard. If you have more questions, we'll be more than happy to address them. I think, Sana, you should take over if you can. The email that you can send to MENA speakers, any questions, trainings, additional information you need, info@MENA-speakers.com. I'm so sorry if I didn't have time to answer. Sana will send you the video after this webinar and we'll figure out a way where I can send you answers to all of these. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Sana, and thanks, MENA speakers.
Thank you so much, Jessy. Get an applaud from me here. Fantastic. I appreciate what you said. So just a quick recap of what was mentioned today. Working in silos is not going to get you very far. And the idea was to create a war room situation where you bring business heads to meet and discuss together. The question between speed versus accuracy, ideally have them both, have them done properly. Communicate using the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. There are 4 phases in this situation, which is gathering the right data, being mindful of your audience, what they want to hear, crafting your message, and then the message delivery. And then there are appropriate responses, which we have seen, and then inappropriate ones. But it does make sense to communicate with your consumers, show compassion. We saw great case studies here from Saudi, the airlines, Bahrain, the leadership of the United Arab Emirates. And so for many of us, this is a defining moment for our leadership. And I hope everyone conducts this responsibly. Of course, many of us will have questions of how to do this in practical terms. And this is a great opportunity for you to work with Jessy. She will be able to actually help you craft your message for your business, for your team. And you're welcome to do that. So you can reach out to us and we will gladly facilitate. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We will be sending out the webinar link to everyone who's registered. And thank you so much, Jessy, for taking your valuable time and sharing your knowledge. We really appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone. All right, goodbye.